Hello, Gamecock fans. I'm Spencer Ball.
And I'm JP Barry. Welcome back to Ball Don't Lie, SGTV's premier live sports show.
JP and I will be giving you our weekly insight every Friday.
This week on the show, NHL, MLB, and NBA updates.
And later, everything you need to know about the men's and women's Final Four.
Be sure to stick around for head-to-head pick'ems.
And without further ado, welcome to Ball Don't Lie.
Welcome to the Kennedy Greenhouse Studio.
If you are a person in the Carolinas with functioning legs and a football jersey, please report to Bank of America Stadium in Charlotte.
We watched Ice Bryce Young do his thing and lead the Panthers to their second win of the season.
I think Matthew McConaughey and Dabo Swinney are very similar. I feel like maybe one day McConaughey could play Dabo in a movie.
Well, I think there's a lot of people that love seeing Clemson lose.
This is just what football is about, man. Two teams that run the football, play defense.
That guy's Superman sometimes, dude. We've got to pick the Yankees, otherwise I'd be kicked out of my own family.
Yankees.
It's time. Is it time?
I think it's time.
This is Ball Don't Lie.
And the NHL regular season concludes in just 2 weeks. Let's take a quick look at the playoff projections in the East and how the field currently stands. Spencer, it's been a long trek to get here, but some teams really stand out. The Washington Capitals, first place in the East as a whole, first place in the Metro. They're one of 3 teams to have clinched a playoff spot.
Yeah, and they are far and away one of the best teams in hockey. The second most points in the entire league, just behind the Winnipeg Jets, who we'll get to in just a bit. But right now, JP, the Caps are must-see TV, man. Not just for how good of a team they are, but of course the Ovechkin goal chase, just a few goals behind Wayne Gretzky, and it can happen any day now.
Yeah, he came into Wednesday's night game against the Carolina Hurricanes needing just 4 goals. He got 1, but it was the only one his team got in a 5-1 defeat in Raleigh. Hurricanes, second place in the Metro, tied for second in the East. They've clinched a playoff spot as well. And then the third place team, the New Jersey Devils, they suffered a lot of injuries, but they're kind of well ahead of the rest of the pack with the New York Rangers in 4th place with 79 points. Moving over to the Atlantic Division, the Toronto Maple Leafs have clinched a playoff spot, but first place is still well up for grabs as they contend with the Tampa Bay Lightning and the Florida Panthers there as well. Your wild cards in the East, as they stand right now, it's the Ottawa Senators looking for their first playoff appearance since 2017. And then right behind them, it's the Montreal Canadiens looking for their first since they went all the way to the Stanley Cup final during the COVID bubble season.
Yeah, and for the Senators, what a great turnaround for them. First time in, you said 8 seasons. That's a long time not even, sniffing the postseason in any form. So they've been really inspiring, and I think it's going to be a fun race, especially in that Atlantic Division, seeing how the Lightning, Panthers, and the Maple Leafs shake out because, they're only separated by 4 points, and you could really see that going either way. It's always hard to bet against the Panthers because they've just kind of...
Especially with Brad Marchand coming back soon, one of the big shockers of the trade deadline. But we could be seeing an all-Florida first round if we still get Tampa versus Florida and that 2 versus 3 in the Atlantic. Some of the teams just outside looking in, you have the New York Rangers, winners of the President's Trophy a year ago with 79 points, 2 behind Montreal. The Columbus Blue Jackets with 77 and the Detroit Red Wings with 75. No team in the East is technically eliminated, but those are really the 3 that they're the only ones that still really have a chance. And for Columbus, they're 4 points back, and Detroit is 6 of Montreal. So, still a lot of hockey left to play. I believe 15 days remain in the regular season. So it should be a fun one.
It's been a really fun regular season. I think the Stanley Cup playoffs is one of the best in sports. It's always awesome to just see how it shakes out because it never quite shakes out how you think it will. And I think that's the beauty of sports, but especially hockey. JP, should we take our talents out west?
Yes, I think we shall. Here's who's going to be competing for the Cup in the Western Conference if the season ended today. The West, much different picture than the East. Many teams have been eliminated. But the top dogs are the top dogs.
Yeah.
Looking at the Central, 3 teams have already clinched a playoff spot. It's the leading team in the NHL, the Winnipeg Jets, with 108 points. Then the Dallas Stars with 104, and the Colorado Avalanche with 98.
Yeah, those 3 teams have been really fun to watch. I think the Stars, of course, picking up Micah Rantanen from the Hurricanes, they've been able to utilize him a little bit better. But again, that offense that's what they do, man. They just score goals. For the Avalanche, I feel like they're kind of in a similar boat. Those are 2 really good teams that skate quick.
And they've been good for a while. You just kind of expect them.
Yeah. And the Jets, JP, Am I wrong to say they've been a bit of a surprise with how dominant they've been? I mean,
last year they kind of snuck into the playoffs a little bit. They've been a playoff team the last couple of years, but people have thought them kind of a disappointment. This year, with Connor Hellebuyck in net, I mean, they have just taken off. A lot like how the Vancouver Canucks did a year ago. Moving over to the Pacific Division, it's a little bit of a different story. Much more up for grabs like the Atlantic in the East. The Vegas Golden Knights with a 98 points are in first, with clinched a playoff spot. But just behind them, it's the LA Kings with 95 and the Edmonton Oilers with 93. Spencer, we may be seeing our 4th straight year with an LA-Edmonton first-round playoff matchup.
It usually makes for a pretty fun one. I know the Oilers kind of being last in that division is a surprise to me, just with, you think of kind of the star value on that team.
Well, you'd think they'd be able to,
you would think,
compete for the division crown, which they still technically can. But the Pacific Division, just kind of, the bottom of it is really bad. The San Jose Sharks, but the Wild Cards are 2 teams from the Central, with St. Louis with 91 points and Minnesota with 89. 2 teams that are really kind of surprising this year. And then behind them, outside looking in, you got the Calgary Flames with 84 points, the Vancouver Canucks with 81, one of the biggest disappointments of the season this year. But the Utah Hockey Club, in their first year in existence, still fighting for a playoff spot. They are 9 points behind. But
so good to see your first year. I don't think there'd be too much expectations. JP, you got to feel for the Blues and the Wild, because if they were playing in the Pacific, they'd probably be out. You're just 2 points out of a playoff spot instead of 9 in the Central. That's a really dominant division this year, man.
Yeah, it's hard to live. We haven't even mentioned, because they're already eliminated, the Nashville Predators, who spent the GDP of a small country in the offseason.
We talked about them on our a previous NHL segment, and I know things have not gotten much better in Tennessee.
No, they have not. It's going to be a fun kind of end of the season. A lot of divisions and playoff spots still up for grabs, but we're going to table hockey talk. Spencer, we're heading back to the Diamond, aren't we?
We're going to go back to a little baseball, starting off in the MLB. My Cubs have come out to a middling but acceptable start. It's been pretty good, but again, I think things have been looking up. Of course, you start with the Dodgers. Hard to expect things, but they've got a 5-4 record. They swept the A's, and the offense has come alive. They've scored 35 runs in 3 games, 3rd in the entire league with 14 long balls, led by Kyle Tucker and Seiya Suzuki. Tucker, he's homered in 4 of his last 5 games. He's got a 1.2 OPS. And, to get really nerdy with it, when you start getting on Baseball Savant, he's got an xWOBA in the 400s. To explain that for you, it's his expected weighted on-base average with, how well he's hitting the ball. So that's just real nerdy, but he is outstanding. But returning to Wrigley Field, it just feels right. It feels like baseball is back, and it's so awesome. Of course, getting the home opening start is going to be Shota Imanaga. All games at 2:20 Eastern, of course, 1:20 Central. Get your kid out of school if you're in Chicago. Make it out to Wrigley. It's just the place to be, man. It's so fun, and I can't wait to tune in and see them take on one of the best teams in the league so far, the San Diego Padres.
Yeah, that one will be a real humdinger. For the Cubs, I think what we saw against Oakland is what we're going to see against a lot of teams playing in a minor league stadium, because the dimensions there are not what, I think normal major leaguers are used to, so we're going to see a lot of home runs against the A's.
Depends on the win.
Yeah. But, speaking of Kyle Tucker, he has a barrel rate in the 96th percentile, which means, when he's making contact, he is hitting the crap out of the ball, and he doesn't need a torpedo bat to do it, which has been a hot topic of discussion.
I think they're just very misunderstood.
Yeah, they're very cool.
People freaking out thinking that people have discovered a new bat for the first time in 30 years. It's like, no, actually, it's been used before, but, it's just one odd angle of it made it look like Jazz Chisholm was hitting with a
wiffle ball.
Yeah, it made it look a lot more disadvantageous or advantageous, but unfair to others. But again, the Cubs have bounced back well. It's going to be a tough series. The Padres look really good right now, but I've got to say one thing. to take the next step, the Cubs have got to spend some money. That's the real thing. You see all these contracts coming out right now, recently. The Red Sox getting a great deal for Garrett Crochet. The Padres getting an excellent deal with Jackson Merrill. When are the Cubs going to lock up Pete Crow Armstrong for a long deal before his value goes up? And with Kyle Tucker, I mean, you were hoping that they just, first off, give him the blank check, whatever he wants, as long as he ends his career in Chicago. With the way he's playing right now, he's one of the best players in Major League Baseball. But you want to see the Cubs, for a team that are 3rd in revenue and 14th in payroll spendings, it's like, hey, let's spend a little money. You're clearly making some. But this team, JP, I think they have the foundations for a team that can very well compete in the postseason. But you got to keep the team together. And you got to go out and add to it because the bullpen needs some help.
Yeah, and, the NL Central, the Brewers look, I mean, like they're throwing, pitching machines up on the mound every start.
Especially against the Yankees.
Oh, my God.
They bounce back a little bit.
The Cardinals are, not good. And, it's just like not really anyone being inspiring. The Pirates and the Reds haven't been either. So it's really looking like the Central is the Cubs for the taking.
If they want to go out and take it. That's, I think, the big thing.
Some teams like the Cubs don't spend money, and some teams spend money on office buildings. And that team, if the Cubs start as middling, the Atlanta Braves is apocalyptic because it has been one of the roughest starts to a season we've seen in quite some time. 0-7, the worst since 2016 when Atlanta started 0-9. They're the last winless team in baseball. Their offense, it would make French generals in World War I blush. They're 30th in batting average, 30th in OPS.
And JP, can you check my memory? There are 30 teams in Major League Baseball.
There are, in fact, 30 teams.
Just wanted to check there.
And, the pitching, by proxy, has been somewhat better. They're 26th in PED usage, and he's out for the playoffs if they make it, which would be bucking a historical trend, as no one has ever made the postseason starting 0-7 or worse in baseball history. And it's really just a multitude of things. Chris Sale has been really kind of concerning. A 5.40 ERA in 2 starts. His fastball velo is low in the low 90s. His command has been really quite spotty on all his pitches, especially his off-speed stuff, leaving a lot of sliders over the heart of the plate. And he's not getting first pitch strikes. He's not getting himself in advantageous counts.
Yeah, and, I know that's been tough for the Braves. I think for right now, you got to focus on the present. You got to try and win some games. They've got a good opportunity. We're going to take a look at their home opening series against the Marlins. The Marlins, however, have looked a little bit more promising and competitive than I think a lot of people were, expecting them to be. But for the Braves, got to have a little bit of faith because you're going to get Acuna back in May. Just got to try and kind of hold on and see if this offense can bounce back because, again, on paper, this is still a very good team. And if any team could buck that trend, you got to think the Braves have the talent to do so. And they have the farm system to do so as well.
Yeah, and they have reinforcements coming. Spencer Strider making rehab starts as well as Sean Murphy. And it really just comes down to taking advantage of opportunities. They're hitting just 6 for 49 on the season with runners in scoring position. A brutal trend.
That's abysmal.
5 of those hits came in their most recent game against the Dodgers.
Whatever happened there?
Well, they had a 5-0 lead and blew it. They had many opportunities to add on, and they didn't do it, and they ended up losing 6-5. But on the mound this weekend for Atlanta, it's Spencer Schwellenbach, who had a dazzling start against San Diego, going no runs allowed in 6 innings. Then it's the young kid, A.J. Smith-Shawver, who had a decent start against San Diego on Sunday, and Grant Holmes, who his usage has been very odd this year. He's been both a reliever and a starter. But the Marlins have only announced one starter for the series. It's Max Meyer, who's had a good first start, couple of starts of the season.
Yeah, I've been watching some of the Marlins games. They started out against the Pirates, and that's not a good offense, so maybe that number is a little inflated. So the Braves really do have a good chance here. And they had a rough start. That's something we didn't mention. Away series against the Dodgers and the Padres. It's the only 2 undefeated teams in baseball, if I'm correct, there left.
Probably, yeah.
I think they're the only 2 that are still undefeated. And, you talk about 2 of the best teams in the league. It's a tough way to start your season, especially without some of your best players. So it's just, you've got a chance to bounce back. You've got what will most certainly be a very crowded home environment.
Yeah, and this is a good opportunity for kind of the fans to get behind the team. But
you can go from 0-7 to 3-7 real quick.
Exactly, and but at some point, like the Cubs, they have to spend money. The ownership, I mean, they're too, they print money with the Battery in Atlanta, and they're buying up all these office buildings in the surrounding area. You spent the bullpen budget on, TJ Maxx, dude. It's like, what are you supposed to? I would rather have current state of his body and mind, Ted Turner, owning the team than like faceless public ownership ghouls that currently run the show.
Dude, I thought you were about to say something about Hector Neris, like running the show.
Oh, Hector Neris is pulling the strings from beyond the curtain, like a certain man, a mustachioed man from
oh goodness,
time past. But anyway, it's just. Play, like you said, you can get to 3-7
you sure can.
Real quick, and it's the Marlins. So if you're the Braves, to get back into things, you got to take care of opportunities against teams like the Marlins.
You got to start hitting the ball. I think it probably starts there more than anything.
Well, there's no one qualified batting over 200. So
well, speaking of a team that really has taken a leap this season in hitting the ball, it's Gamecock softball.
Absolutely.
And they went down to the Bayou and took a huge win over number 3 LSU, winning 2 of 3 there. That is primetime stuff, JP.
It is, and it's funny that it started with a loss to the Tigers, and
a big one.
A blowout loss, but a weather delay knocked both games in the series to Sunday, I believe, and the Gamecocks swept them both, and it was very impressive. They got the win over Wofford in the midweek, a Wofford team that is very impressive in just their second year of existence, already over 20 wins on the year, and I find it very interesting that the Gamecocks didn't move up at all.
It doesn't make a lot of sense just because, you win 2 of 3 on the road. I'd understand if it was at home, maybe a little bit more. But on the road, you go win a doubleheader against the number 3 team in the country and you don't move up. It's unfortunate, but can I tell you a way that you can make sure you move up? You go out and you bring out the brooms against number 19 Ole Miss this weekend at Beckham Field. It's going to be a really fun 3-game series. If you tune in to SGTV's live broadcast today, you're going to get to see the same 2 smiling faces. So come hang out with us. But it should be another fun series. And again, SEC softball, it's always fun, man.
It is, and it's the 6th straight ranked series for the Gamecocks. 5-1 in their series in that stretch. I think you can live with that almost certainly.
As your only one loss is 3 one-run games to Oklahoma.
Yeah.
That's not bad at all.
And this man will be on the horn for all 3 games this weekend. So if you're not sick of him yet, you will be.
Hey, you've got plenty of chances, but don't go anywhere because we've got professional and college basketball right after this quick commercial.
And the NBA regular season, much like the NHL, is coming to a close as we have 2 of the best playoffs in the history of sports really colliding at the same time. Here's what you can expect to see in the playoffs starting April 19th.
And JP, I'm really, really excited for both postseasons, but I think the NBA playoffs, it really is a step up from the regular season. So we're going to start out west. They've clinched the playoffs and the number 1 seed. It's the OKC Thunder by about 14 games, it appears.
Yeah, they're absurd.
Far and away the best team in that division, at least record-wise. Again, the postseason, a whole different story. In the 2 seed, it's the Rockets who have clinched. In the 3, it's the Nuggets. In the 4, the Lakers. The 5 seed is the Warriors. The 6-seeded Grizzlies, who just fired Taylor Jenkins right after our show last week. Then moving on, it's the T-Wolves and the Clippers. All of those teams have clinched the postseason. We won't know their seeding. We won't know which teams will be in the play-in. But that's how it looks right now. Again, right outside, we've got the Mavericks and the Kings. Suns, Blazers, Spurs to follow that up. But again, those 3 teams probably not going to make it.
They'll be joining the island of misfit NBA franchises in the middle there sooner rather than later.
Would you like to break those down for us,
you got the New Orleans Pelicans who are dedicating all their money to a man who, eats his weight in Popeyes, which is impressive. But then you have the 76ers who signed a injury-ridden podcaster to pair with their injury-ridden Frenchman, which didn't really pan out.
It's a very interesting strategy. I'm not a big fan of that kind of process.
They know a lot about the processes up there in Philadelphia, don't they?
Yeah.
Then the Wizards, who are the Wizards, the Jazz, who are the Jazz, the Hornets, who are the Hornets, and then you have the Toronto Raptors, who are committed to doing something weird. I don't know what it is.
They were like, let's go get Brandon Ingram.
Pay him a bunch of money and then shelve him for the rest of the season.
Yeah, but they're like, hey, his ankle's really hurt, we swear. It's not a trick. But, one of those teams will likely get Cooper Flagg, unless he stays at Duke, honestly.
That would be objectively hysterical.
It would be the Hornets' luck. So come back to this whenever the Hornets get the 1 seed.
But there's plenty of consolation prizes, at least. It's looking like a much better draft than it was a year ago. Oh, my God.
Absolutely, but we are going to move to
the East, where we have really another really kind of historically great team. But they're not as great as the Oklahoma City Thunder. But the Cleveland Cavaliers, first in the East at 61-15.
It's weird you can say that and be like, not as historically great. They have 4 times as many wins as losses.
Yeah,
it's an impressive league.
It really is. And right behind them is the defending NBA champion Boston Celtics in second. Then at third you have the New York Knicks, who may be a better team than a year ago, but a little bit less in the standings. Behind them it's the Indiana Pacers, having a really great stretch post All-Star break, post trade deadline. Then the Milwaukee Bucks, dealing with the injury to Dame Lillard. We don't know when he'll come back.
Unfortunate, man. 2 blood clot injuries taking out 2 super fun players in the league. Just hopefully they'll be able to get back to playing basketball because it's a scary one.
Yeah, and they're jockeying for position with the Detroit Pistons, who are tied with them at 42 and 34. The Pistons, one of the biggest surprises in the NBA this year.
Yeah, clinching the postseason, it's awesome. I hope they make not the play-in. I hope they get to see them in a series right off the bat. Playoff basketball back in Detroit, it's been a long time. I think it's well-deserved for those fans. And J.B. Bickerstaff, I think, deserves a lot of credit for what he's been able to do just, turning this team around because Monty Williams...
Especially after he got fired from the Cavs.
After a good season, they made
ridiculous.
The playoffs. I would say it's a win-win for both teams.
Absolutely, and then right behind them, in kind of the play-in position, you have the Orlando Magic, then the Atlanta Hawks, the Miami Heat, and the venerable play-in Warriors, the Chicago Bulls.
Inevitable stuff there.
Yeah, if you have a pulse in the East, you're probably making the play-in, or even on accident.
The Hornets dead in the water.
Yeah, but some of these matchups potentially are very interesting in the East. The West is getting a lot of love, but for the East right now, you have Milwaukee and Detroit. They play 2 games this weekend or next weekend to end the regular season, and they're tied in the standings. They're either going to play the Pacers or the Knicks, and either one of those could be a very fun matchup, especially with Jalen Brunson and Deuce McBride and Campaign coming back for New York here soon. And whoever loses that or wins it in this case, they'll face the Indiana Pacers, a team that went to the Eastern Conference Finals a year ago, and they're playing very good basketball right now.
It's going to be a really fun postseason. We will be back with more, postseason content as we get closer and we get a little bit of a bracket for you. And of course, we'll give you our pick'ems there. But we are going to move on to one of the most difficult award seasons we've seen in NBA history. It's a horrible time to be an award voter because, frankly, you could flip a coin and both answers would be right. But here are the projected leaders for the 5 main awards in the NBA. Starting off with the MVP, as of right now, SGA is listed as the favorite, followed by Nikola Jokic, Giannis, Jason Tatum, and LeBron James. Of course, Giannis having one of the crazier games we've seen all season yesterday. 35 points, 17 rebounds, 20 assists from Giannis is absolutely absurd.
He is. Really, without him, you look at that roster, they'd be right there with the Hornets. They are, even with Dame healthy, they are horrific for the most part. Doc Rivers is Doc Rivers.
But questionable hire there, but JP,
it's really a 2-man race.
I was about to say.
Jokic is historically great, but SGA, you can't just ignore someone averaging 30 points a game on the best team in the league.
And also, he's super efficient. He's a really good defender. And SGA, I think the brilliance that he can bring for this Thunder team is that you can plug him in a lineup of a bunch of guys that aren't really good scorers but are really good defenders, which is why they're the #1 defense in the league. And SGA can still carry this offense. And I think that's a very valuable skill. But Jokic, JP, I think he might be the best offensive player we've ever seen.
He's on a run that puts him in those conversations at the very least. I mean, he had like a 61-point triple-double that Russell Westbrook sold because he's Russell Westbrook.
He's had a really good year. We should give him his flowers. Russ has been sneaky good for the Nuggets. A bad clutch time moment for sure. But again, who would you pick? If this was you, who would you pick?
I think I would pick SGA simply because 30 points a game is absurd. He is, the leader of the best team in the league. And, I mean, he does it both ways also. Jokic, notorious bad defender. I mean, he's having a little bit of
he's getting better.
He's getting better
every year,
because he has to, because the rest of his team is so bad. And like Jokic, a lot like Giannis, if Jokic wasn't there, that team would be horrific. So you got to give him props for that.
I think they'd be worse than the Hornets, and I don't even know if it'd be close.
They'd be the worst team in the league.
Jokic, I think, might be the best floor raiser in the league, like without a doubt. I mean, he's surrounded by a bunch of players who, again, play their role well, but they play it well because they have Jokic in the middle. If I had to pick, I'd maybe also lean SGA, but Jokic's performance as of late, I think we'd have to wait till the end of the season.
We're going to see a fun race. I feel like we're going to see these guys try to outdo each other down the stretch and kind of impress the voters.
We will, but let's move on to Rookie of the Year.
Well, it's a battle between, what have you done for me over the course of the year and what have you done for me lately? As the number one overall pick is the number 2 spot here, Zachary Rhoades. I think it's Rhoades. He's been outstanding since he came back from his injury. Speaking of which, my shoulder just started hurting really bad.
We got a bunch of...
But Stephon Castle for the Spurs, the rookie out of UConn, has been really kind of solid the whole year long. So it's kind of how you judge the peak versus the longevity there. And
also, Rhoades, I think, is trending up because...
The Hawks are playing a little bit better.
The Hawks are a lot healthier. The Spurs they lost Wemby for the year. Castle's being asked to do a lot more. And
they lost Fox too, I think, right?
Yeah, and you take your best player just out of the equation. Makes it a lot harder, especially for a rookie. So I think I'd probably lean Rhoades, especially if his play keeps continuing up. JP, he had 36 points on one dribble the other night.
He did. I mean, that was
very
impressive. Then joining them is Khalil Ware for the Wizards, or for the Heat, Alex Sarr for the Wizards, and Jalen Wells for the Grizzlies. I think it's really kind of a two-man race here as well. Although Alex Sarr has been very quietly good.
The rookies have gotten a lot better. We've seen a ton of improvement because they started really bad.
If Jared McCain was healthy, he'd probably be running away with this thing. He was lighting the world on fire in November.
Philly was watchable for about 2 weeks.
Even without Embiid, even without Maxey. I mean, McCain was doing it all. It was very fun to watch.
3, though.
Yeah, I think I would go with Rhoades just because I think he'll end the season playing really, really good as he has continued to do.
He's getting a lot of hate, kind of for no reason. You got to give it time.
Because Alex Sarr should have been the number 1 pick to the Hawks, but he ran from the grind. So.
He did. And we'd also like to shout out Tijan Salam before we move on.
It's true.
Improving greatly with the Hornets, getting a lot of minutes. A young kid, and what I love from him, you can tell that he wants to win, and
he cares.
That's wonderful. I mean, he's hustling, and frankly, the Hornets got no reason to be hustling right now.
It's true.
We'll move on to Defensive Player of the Year, where right now Draymond Green heads the pack, followed by Evan Mobley, Lou Dort, Triple J, and SGA. What he said, it is ridiculous. This should be Evan Mobley 100%.
Either Evan Mobley or Jaren Jackson. Lou Dort's defense is hurting the people he's guarding, so we throw him in the trash. Draymond Green, he's already in the trash because he's a horrible person, and he lives there like Oscar the Grouch. I just don't understand how Evan Mobley, Jaren Jackson Jr., and SGA aren't really kind of the... I mean, Jaren Jackson Jr., I think, is the most undervalued player in basketball right now.
I was going to say him or Evan Mobley, who I think is...
Evan Mobley, I think, should be the front runner right now.
Mobley brings. Well, I think it would definitely be Wemby if he's still playing.
Oh, well, yeah.
He was ridiculous.
Dyson Daniels, where's he at?
He should at least be in the top 5 for what he's doing. He's having the greatest defensive guard season ever.
Yeah.
Leads the league in deflections and steals. He's outstanding. But I understand why you want to give it to a rim protector just because the value that brings to a team defense. Evan Mobley brings so much flexibility to the Cavs lineup. You can run him at the 4 or the 5. He can guard people on the perimeter. He can guard on the interior.
He's an old school big. He looks like a character from the HBO's Showtime. Like he looks old. He plays old.
And he can shoot threes now.
And now he can do that also, which is terrifying. This is an interesting case.
Draymond Green. Are we
That's
trying
entirely
to
propaganda.
Are we trying to build this Hall of Fame
What
case?
is this, the DPRK? This is shameless.
Do we watch basketball? Let's move on.
Anyway, yeah, most improved player, Dyson Daniels leading the pack there.
Deservedly.
Cade Cunningham, Christian Braun, Tyler, I can never get his name right.
Tyler
Hero, and Evan Mobley.
Tyler Hero.
I always kind of disagree with the notion here where it's like former #1 overall picks like Cade Cunningham.
Give me that.
Like, you're not most improved for just getting better and finally playing up to your, selection.
Friend of the show and noted basketball lover JJ Redick, who I think has been a very welcome surprise this year to basketball just for his candidness and love of the game, was on quote saying he hates the MIP because do you not expect the #1 overall pick to get better? You draft them not for what they're going to be day one, but for what they're going to become. Cade Cunningham has gotten a lot better, but is he the most improved player? No, not even close.
He's really kind of a very similar player to how he's been the last couple of years. They're just winning now.
The team is a lot better. He's in a better system, but I would definitely say he's improved, but again, a guy like Dyson Daniels,
it's Dyson Daniels.
has gone to like the best defensive guard in the league, and he should get a lot of credit for that. Christian Braun, I think, has become a great option for the Nuggets. So again, guys like that deserve a lot more shine, I think, than Cade Cunningham, Evan Mobley, even Tyler Hero. He's had a much more efficient year. He's kind of, kept the Heat afloat. But again, a guy who was a much more higher draft pick than either of the other two. So you know where we stand on that.
Exactly.
Moving on to our last award, it's the Sixth Man of the Year, where, again, I think Peyton Pritchard probably walks away with this.
Oh, yeah.
one.
I mean, the Celtics kind of have a monopoly on this. But Malik Beasley, Russell Westbrook, DeAndre Hunter, and Ty Jerome have all been very solid seasons, especially DeAndre Hunter, who got traded from Atlanta to Cleveland, and Ty Jerome from UVA. Really I didn't think he would really kind of get hold in the NBA.
Dude, he's leading that bench unit like a champ.
He is, and he gives some very funny post-game press conference
He sure
answers.
does, but one thing you notice about Sixth Man of the Year, every single one of these teams in the playoff picture.
Exactly.
Makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, because, I mean, the guy, if you're not good enough to start on a bad team, then you're not going to be good enough to win Sixth Man of the Year, because some of these guys would start at almost any other place.
Yeah, but you also talk about great roster construction. A lot of these teams are really doing things well, and that's why they
Shout
have
out
a lot of
Malik Beasley, though,
representation
man.
here. Dude, shooting like 44% from three. He's a great option. Corner three, it's automatic, man.
Absolutely. But now we're going to move over to the collegiate ranks to talk about college basketball to wrap up today's show. We'll start with the men's Final Four. Starts tomorrow. It features all #1 seeds for the second time ever. First time since 2008 when North Carolina won it all. But Spencer, I mean, the baseline.
I think that was Kansas. They beat Memphis.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
I was thinking of. I got the years
following
mixed up.
year.
Was
Hey,
UNC with Tyler Hansborough and all them.
Yeah.
But
Dominant run. Hey, don't forget that.
I think the sideline says it all. The road ends here, Spencer.
And what an awesome time. The last time all 4 1 seeds, it was in San Antonio. In these 4 teams, JP, I think we could say are the 4 best in basketball.
Oh, easily. Well, 4 of the top 10 Ken Pom teams ever. I mean, all seated in one arena for 2 games on Saturday. Doesn't get much better than that.
We will be there.
Auburn, they got here. They jumped out to a big lead against Michigan State and held on for dear life after Janai Broome got hurt. He came back into the game, says he's 100% ready to go for Saturday's game against one of the only teams to get the better of the Tigers in the regular season, the Florida Gators.
Yeah, he basically, went to the back. He said, just tell me it ain't broken. Then he comes back, splashes a 3, and that's when I knew the Spartan dream was over. That felt like a dagger, personally. It went through the screen, JP.
It did.
But these 2 teams, awesome. It's an SEC matchup. I'm glad that they get to meet first. That feels right. But it was a really fun game last time out. Again, Florida winning 90-82 without Elijah Martin, I believe. And that's...
Yeah. Walter Clayton was dealing with that ankle injury, too, at the time. They just went out there. This was right after Auburn got the #1 ranking in the AP poll, and they just gutted it out. For Auburn, it's their second Final Four of all time, joining their 2019 squad. For Florida, it's their 6th, but it's their first time since 2014. The Gators got here. They were trailing by as many as 10. They were down 9 with 3 minutes to go. Texas Tech.
Oh, man. It was really tragic because... they missed a couple free throws they definitely should have hit. But then Walter Clayton you're seeing a March legend unfold in front of your eyes. It was when he got that rebound, sprinted out to the 3-point line and just turned around and
I've seen one basketball player do something like that ever, and it was Steph Curry. It was unbelievable.
That's exactly what it looked like. And that is a scary thing to say. and I'm sure Auburn has him circled in bright red on their planning sheet.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. Kind of the matchup here is going to be, how can Janai Broome get going against Alex Condon and Micah Handlocked and down low?
Thomas Tahad has been great.
Tahad Pettiford and Chad Baker-Mazar are going to have to try and contain Walter Clayton Jr.
Yeah.
This is going to be a really fun one. The other side, the 8:49 tip on CBS, it's Duke against Houston. Two kind of premier basketball legendary programs here. For Houston, it's their 7th Final Four of all time. For Duke, it's the 18th. But for the Blue Devils, they have won 31 of their last 32. Houston boasts the nation's longest winning streak. This is just two of the best teams playing their best basketball at the best time.
This is awesome. It really is. It's going to be an incredible game just to watch. Again, you've got a veteran head coach versus the apprentice, Sean Shire. It's got everything, man. It's got everything. Again, these are 4 of the top 10 KenPom teams ever. So I think both of these games, pure cinema. Make sure you sit down and watch them. There's really nothing else we can say.
No, but it'll be interesting to see. It's kind of that way in both situations. You have Todd Golden for Florida, a young head coach against Bruce Pearl, who's been around the way. And then Kelvin Sampson versus John Shire. Pearl and Sampson, two guys, they've been around a long time. They've gotten right close, but they just haven't been able to get it done. And Golden and Shire. Yeah, we'll see that. I'm interested. These games are just going to be so phenomenal.
We're like tripping over our words because we're so excited.
I'm itching to see it again. I can't wait.
I can't wait. But it's not the only Final Four this weekend. That's right, the women's Final Four is also this weekend beginning tonight at 7 p.m. And SGTV has boots on ground in Tampa. So be sure to follow our YouTube, our social media, as we're going to be putting out content there. I said we're not going to Tampa, but we do have people there. Yeah. We as an org, of course.
We would be in the wrong place right now.
It'd be real tough to get to Tampa by 7. But of course, we've got 2 premier matchups. It's number 1 seeded Texas versus the 1 seeded Gamecocks at 7, and then number 1 UCLA versus number 2 UConn at 9. JP.
Fourth matchup between Texas. Yeah, fourth matchup between Texas and South Carolina. The Gamecocks looking to take 3 or 4. Texas looking to even it up.
And you're probably wondering who had this exact Final Four. This guy.
I had 3 out of 4.
This guy.
I was close.
Yep, this guy. But no, again, I'm not sure it'll play out the way I picked. But again, we'll talk about that in a little bit. But let's get into that Texas-South Carolina matchup again. The 4th time this season. It's not often you see that.
No, it's really not. And I wouldn't call this an SEC matchup just yet because Texas is their first year. You don't really think of them as an SEC team quite yet. But for the Gamecocks, they reached their 5th straight Final Four by hanging on for dear life against the defensively oriented Duke Blue Devils. And they're looking to repeat.
In that game, it felt like South Carolina had a chance to pull away. They really had the offense going in that first half, but they just kind of started turning the ball over and getting a little lazy. Fool Wiley has been really hit or miss. In that Maryland game, she kept the Gamecocks in it, and eventually, they held on to win that one. But against Duke, she looked just kind of mentally out of it, just making a couple boneheaded plays, some silly turnovers. So really, South Carolina's going to need her against Texas. But, JP, I feel like I'm just waiting for a game where South Carolina plays the best they can.
Yeah, and that's kind of been the story of the season as a whole. Like, these guys, this team is really just trying to find themselves. Some people go through stretches of playing really well, and then others struggle a little bit. And there's not going to be a better opportunity than tonight against Texas in the biggest game of the entire year so far. So no pressure. But it's not the only game tonight, Spencer, as we have a great nightcap. The historical powerhouse, the UConn Huskies, taking on the new kids on the block, the UCLA Bruins. Not typically something you say when it comes to basketball, but compared to UConn especially, this is, how else can you put it other than cinema? Paige Becker's looking for that elusive national title. And for UCLA, Lauren Betts is just really, putting the team on her back.
She's been a tank, and if, she was held to 50% from the field against LSU, and her surrounding team really pulled through with Tamia Gardner, 15 points off the bench, powering them, as well as Gabriela Jaquez, 4 from 5 from 3 there, helping UCLA take down the Tigers. But before that, Lauren Betts, I think, had missed like 4 shots all tournament. She was shooting like 90% from the field. Just powerhousing UCLA's way into this Final Four. And again, she's kind of everything for this UCLA team. Get the ball down to the low block, let her work, let her kick it out to her team. And that's kind of how UCLA's made their living this year. They've got Kiki Rice out on the perimeter, who's been their dominant ball-handling guard. But it's a tale of two Tier 1 players, I feel like.
Absolutely. I'm very excited to kind of see how it goes. These are 2 games on ESPN tonight. Like we said, we have, team coverage of the games tonight, so make sure you keep your eyes on that. I just can't wait to get to it.
Dude, it's going to be awesome. Both Final Fours are they're very competitive, very fun. And, one thing I really love, they play on different days. You don't have to worry about flipping to find the women's game, finding the men's game. You can watch them separate times, separate places. Be there tonight for the women, tomorrow for the men, and do it all the same Sunday and Monday. But that's all we've got for you today. We'll be right back after a quick break to wrap up this week with another set of pick'ems.
Welcome back to BDL Pick'ems. After last week, I'm at 58-39, while Spencer sits at 67-30. It's been a nice semester for the lads in Pick'ems, and then we're going to get right into it with the Final Four. We're doing baseball
We're going to
first.
start with our Diamond Series. We'll end it with the Final Four. That's just really the cream of the crop. Starting with the Atlanta Braves against the Miami Marlins, we're going to pick our series winner. JP, who are you going with?
I think Atlanta, this is more of a plea than a pick, but they get back on track.
Yeah.
It doesn't even matter if they're hitting the ball that much. Just do it enough to beat the gosh dang Marlins.
Good self-restraint there. I'm going to also pick the Braves. If you can't beat the Marlins, it's going to be a real long year for the Braves.
Well, tickets will be cheap, so they can make more money to spend on
Ball Don't Lie road trip?
offices.
Yeah, we'll take a little trip. Moving on to the Chicago Cubs. Again, it's the Wrigley home opener. They've got the Padres coming to town, 2:20, 3 straight days. Who are you going with in this one?
This one's tough. I think I'm going to take the Padres just because they're playing very ridiculous at the moment. They're very good, very talented, and they've started the season just shot out of a cannon.
I'm going to go with the Cubs. I know that sounds like a biased pick, but I think the Cubs got pretty lucky that Michael King and Dylan Cease just threw for the Padres.
That is
true.
They've
got the 3 through 5 starters, whereas the Cubs get to throw Shota on Friday. You got to think they win the game today, start off the home stretch good, and if the Bats are playing like they are right now, the Cubs look like one of the best teams in baseball, and I'm very pleased with that. Moving on to a series we're going to get real familiar with this weekend. It's Gamecock softball as they host number 19 Ole Miss. Down at Beckham Field, JP.
This one's going to be tough. I think that they moved to, 6-1 in series against ranked opponents. I think they take care of business against Ole Miss, but I think it's close.
I think so, too. Again, I'm going to go with the Gamecocks. The bats have been super dominant, and the pitching has been clutch when it counts. In that doubleheader, only gave up just a handful of runs compared to the 11 they gave up on Friday. I think softball, I think they'll get it done. Not sure if I'd predict a sweep, but I think they take at least 2 of 3. Now we're going to move on to the Final Four. Starting with the men's games, it's Auburn versus Florida.
Man, this one's tough. It is very, very tough. But I think the difference is Florida can go very deep in multiple positions. Auburn, they've had moments where they just aren't playing cohesively. They're not playing great. Florida really hasn't had that. They've won a lot of these games in blowouts, and they just have a knack for the clutch gene. I think the Gators get it done and move on to the national title.
I'm going to stick with my original picks that I made when making my bracket because, frankly, I don't really have any reason to change. I'm also going to go with the Gators. There's just something about this team that I feel like they're going to get it done. Now, moving on to Duke versus Houston. Who you got in that one?
This one is very, very fun. I love the matchup here.
Yeah.
But Duke is just on another level currently. I mean, they clobbered Alabama, held them to 8 for 32 from 3. I mean, if they can do that to Alabama, Houston struggles to score a lot. In general, that's kind of just how they're built.
Yeah.
I just don't see how they score enough to beat Duke.
I think Duke is the only team that has not even looked like they've had a flaw all tournament. Haven't really played a super close game. You know, we saw Houston and Gonzaga be close. We saw Florida, Texas Tech be close. Auburn has had a couple close at least halves. You know, it was close against Creighton, Michigan, and Michigan State, at least in that first half. So I'm also going to go with Duke. again, I think this is one of the best teams we've ever seen. I've got them going all the way. I'll say I think Duke wins the title, too.
Yeah, I agree.
We're not going to count this in pick'ems just because,
No.
they could lose. That's the beauty of basketball. Whatever we say, it could happen the exact opposite, and it certainly has before. Moving on to the women's Final Four. Our first game of the day, it's South Carolina versus Texas tonight at 7. Who are you going with?
I think South Carolina, they complete, the season against Texas, get that third win against the Longhorns. I think that they just have too much for them. I think, it comes from so many different people, and I think a lot of different folks step up tonight for South Carolina.
And that's one thing that South Carolina has that Texas does not. Texas, their leading scorer every game of the tournament, Madison Booker. They're a really great defensive team, but who can they turn to if the Gamecocks have an answer for Booker, which they had in the SEC tournament? That's the question. It's a big question mark. I know that's what Texas is going to have to answer to beat South Carolina. I don't think they do, and I think the Gamecocks do move on to the championship game. And who do you think they're going to face? UConn, UCLA, the nightcap.
I think Paige Beckers has been a woman on a mission this tournament. I don't see it stopping here. I think UConn gets back to the national title game to set up a rematch of the one from our freshman year.
Bookends.
Bookends.
I think UConn gets it done as well. South Carolina will have a chance for revenge as they lost to Connecticut in embarrassing form down at CLA just a couple months ago. It's going to be awesome.
I'm excited.
It's the end of March. It's a bittersweet thing, but we've got great basketball games to send us into April. We're already into April. The rest of the way. That's going to do it for this episode of Ball Don't Lie. Again, be sure to follow us on Instagram, X, and TikTok at SGTV at USC, and keep up with the Final Four content from Tampa.
Exactly. To keep up with all our content, be sure to also visit us online at sgtv@usc.com. For SGTV, I'm JP Barry.
And I'm Spencer Ball, and from all of us here at SGTV, have a great weekend, Carolina.
Forever to thee.
Hey, Ball. Hey, Ball. Hey, Ball. Hey, Ballski.